Good morning. This is Walk by Faith, and I'm Abigail Knott. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and share. I don't know what that little block there is. If you can see it, I don't know why it's there. But anyway, today we're talking about what happens to the world when God is taken out, when you block God from your lives. How do we block God from our lives? By not caring about what He thinks, by not obeying Him, by not seeking Him out, by turning your back on Him. These are some of the things, and by purposefully doing the things that He has prohibited us from doing. And those of you who are sitting there thinking, yeah, Christianity is a whole lot of rules and regulations. Well, I should think that not stealing would be a good rule. I should think that not murdering would be a good rule. I would think that not coveting your neighbor's things would be a pretty good law, because all the laws that God put in place through Moses were from the 10 Commandments, which, by the way, are what we all adhere to. What happens if you steal? You end up in the court system, in jail. What happens if you murder? You end up in the court system and in jail. These are things that were biblical before you and I even drew breath. These are the things that are the rules and regulations. When you wantonly turn your back on His rules and regulations, His blessing on your life actually stops. And some of you will be saying, oh, His blessing never stops. Once He's given you His blessing, He never stops. Well, first of all, where in the Bible do you say that? Do you see that? Because literally every blessing He gave had a condition attached to it. And this is just the truth of the matter. So I read today. I've been reading through Judges, and basically the Israelites were told to go to war with all the nations that were in the land to basically kill everything that they had, them and everything that they had, because they were severely evil. They were killing, they were murdering, they were stealing, they were corrupted, they were extremely violent. And, all those laws that God had set in place, in their culture, they just ignored those laws. And people say, oh, culture's so great. It's so nice to learn about each other's cultures. And yes, it is. But when a culture is glorifying, for instance, the rape of children, the killing of innocent people, that is not a culture that I want to get to know. I don't know about you. I'm just being real with you. That's not a culture that I want to get to know. And so in Judges, the last few chapters, I've never read through the whole of Judges before, but the last few chapters just show you what happens when a nation or people or an individual turns away from God. I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to think what's happening in the world now. America turned away from God, right? I think they are putting God more at their center now, but they did turn away from God. There's lots of corruption in America. In our own country, there is lots of witchcraft and ancestor worship and everything. And we are a country that actually turned away from God. And because of that, we have things as a result of that. Yeah, it's not us. It's our leadership that's really corrupt. But also we are sinning against the laws of God. And so there are repercussions for that. But we no longer have to die. Those repercussions bring you closer to Jesus' heart, bring you closer to knowing the Lord. That's why we don't have to kill people anymore. Not that we would have had to, but the Israelites had to, because it was God enforcing his rule over that area that he had given to the Israelites. And so for God to enforce his rule today, it doesn't mean that we have to go out and fight them, because God fights our battles. And because since Jesus died, he the whole time, he would rather reach out to people and draw them in with his love and turn them around to accept his eternal life. And it's with love that he does it. It's with concern that he does it, because he wants to spend eternity with us. So we don't have to be like the Israelites, but we do have to be like Christians who understand God's love, who care enough about people to talk about his love. So now, think about all the bomb threats, all the bombs that have gone off around the world, set by a certain people who I will not name. And bombs have gone off. The certain people who I will not name have done their best to take over America, have done their best to take over UK. But in these places, people are starting to stand up to them. And truth is starting to be told, and these same people, these same murderous people, and not all of them are like this, but a vast majority in these other nations trying to take over these other nations are like that, okay? It's just a fact. But basically, people are starting to stand up. They starting to speak the truth, and they are scared, because if people hear the truth, they will change their minds. A lot of them will, because a lot of people have been fed certain narratives, even in universities, even in colleges, where they have been fed certain narratives and they've believed it. And if they heard the truth, they would understand, wow, I need to reevaluate what I think about life right now, about other people. And if other people talk online, if they talk online but they don't have a love that they're sharing online, even when they are arguing against a point, if they don't have love in their hearts for the people that they're arguing against, that is a fruit of the Spirit. No, fruit, what? Joy, peace, love. I need to get it to it. With Galatians, hey. Hold on. I'm going to look it up, because I want to get to it. Because if people are talking online and they just like to hear their own voices, we've even got some Christians like that, and they are fighting, but they are starting to look like more and more like the other people, the other side. And that's not how we fight. We fight on our knees. We fight with truth. Okay, so I'm just going to say fruit of the Spirit. Okay. Yes, love is one of them. I thought love was one of them. I just suddenly was like, is love one of them? It should be one of them, because the whole of Christianity is based on love. So it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Okay. So there we have it. When you are talking, if you are speaking truth, always do it in love, not and don't do it in the same spirit that the others are fighting against you. The others, meaning, let's just say the enemy's lies, are fighting against you. You put them down with truth. You do your research too. You do it with facts, but you put them down. You put down those lies in love, and you realize that you are fighting against a power or principality. You're not fighting against other people. So what happens? Let's see what happens. Okay, I think. Yes, okay, so I'm going to read this to you and you're going to see what actually happens. So it's Judges 19. This is what happens. This is what happens to our world when we turn our back on God. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, there was a certain Levite living on the far side of the Ephraim hills, who took a woman from Bethlehem in Judah to be his concubine. First of all, concubine. God does not allow for concubines. That's already not obeying God's law, right? But his concubine was unfaithful to him. How can you be unfaithful to someone who is not your husband? But in this time, he was considered her husband because they had taken on the values of the people around them, like we sometimes do, right? But his concubine was unfaithful to him, and you want to talk about women's rights and anti-violence against women, gender-based violence. Just listen to this story. But his concubine was unfaithful to him and left him to go to her father's house in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is Bethlehem in Judah, where she stayed for some time, 4 months. Then her husband, don't know how that's your husband, but okay, went after her to persuade her to return. He had his servant with him and a pair of donkeys. She brought him into her father's house, and when the girl's father saw him, he was glad to meet him. His son-in-law, the girl's father, kept him there, so he remained with him for 3 days. They ate, drank, and stayed there. On the 4th day, they got up early in the morning, and he prepared to leave. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "You'll be better if you have a bite of food to eat before you leave." So the two of them, okay, and then he keeps on saying stay, and then he stays, and then at the end, he actually says, "No, I have to leave now." So, but the man wouldn't stay that night. So this is after a few nights now, a few more nights now, when he's convinced to stay with the concubine's father. But the man wouldn't stay that night. So he got up and left with his concubine on his saddled donkeys, and they arrived at Yevus. Also known as Jerusalem. Oh, there, it was Jerusalem. But the time they arrived in Jerusalem, it was early evening. It was nearly evening, and the servant said to his master, "Why don't we go to the city in the land of Jerusalem and stay there?" But his master said to him, "We won't go into a city of foreigners, which doesn't belong to the people of Israel. We'll go on across to Gibeah." He said to his servant, "Let's go, and we'll get to one of those places. We'll stay in Gibeah or Ramah." So they went on and kept traveling until the sun set on them in Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. There they turned off the road to go and stay in Gibeah. He went in and sat down in the city's open space, since no one had offered his home for them to spend the night. In time, at nightfall, an old man came from his work in the field. He was from the Ephraim hills and was staying in Gibeah. So, although the residents were of Benjamin, the old man looked up, saw the traveler in the city's open space, and said, "Where are you going and where are you coming from?" He replied, "We're crossing from Bethlehem in Judah to the far side of the Ephraim hills. That's where I'm from. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I'm going to the house of Adonai. But there's no one here who will let me spend the night in his home. We have straw and food for our donkeys, also bread and wine for me, my concubine, and the boy there with your servants. We don't need anything else." The old man said, "You're welcome to stay with me. I'll take care of anything you lack. Just don't spend the night out in the open." So he brought him home and gave food to his donkeys. Then they washed their feet and ate and drank. So that's another thing. No one invited them home. In the Middle East, like, people are very hospitable to each other, especially in that time. If they saw someone that had traveled a long way, they would normally have already offered him a place to stay. So they were relaxing, and then suddenly some men from the city, good for nothing, surrounded the house and began beating at the door. "Send out the man who came home with you," they demanded of an old man whose house it was. "We want to have sex with him." The man whose house it was went out and said to them, "No, my brothers, please don't do anything as wrong as this. Look, he's just a guest in my house. Don't do this degrading thing. Here's my daughter, who's a virgin, and his concubine. I'll bring them out. Mistreat them. Do what you want to them, and don't do such a degrading thing to this man." However, the men wouldn't listen to him. So the man took hold of his concubine and brought her out to them. So these men want to harm him, and he's like, "Oh, just fine. Here's a woman. Women they don't have any value. Just my concubine, like, go, have at it, you know. They raped her and abused her all night long. Only at dawn did they let her go. At daybreak, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her husband was, and she was still there when it grew light. When her husband got up, opened the doors of the house, and went out to go on his way, he saw the woman lying there with her hands stretched out towards the door. He said to her, "Get up, let's go." But there was no answer, so he loaded her body on the donkey and began his trip home. On arrival at his house, he got a knife, took hold of his concubine's body, cut her up into 12 pieces, and sent them to all the regions of Israel. Everyone who saw it said, "From the day the people of Israel came up from Egypt until now, never has such a thing happened or been seen. What are we going to do about it? Talk it over and decide." So let me get this straight. He sends a concubine out. They rape her and torture her to death. She can't even get back into the house. And she dies on the step there. He sees her, realizes she's dead, and cuts her up into 12 pieces to send to the different tribes of Israel. Now, I carried on reading after that, and the tribes of Israel were quite shocked by the act, and they went and asked them what happened. And this caused them to go to war with the people of Benjamin. They actually went to war over it. Talk about Helen, the face that launched, 1,000 ships? This was the face of a concubine that launched basically the whole of Israel against the tribe of Benjamin. Okay? And they were fighting against Benjamin for the evil that they'd done. And God was actually with them. God used the rest of Israel to dish out his justice because of the woman whose life had been tortured and raped, and had ended because people didn't care about women back then. And this wasn't a Jewish value. It was because they'd taken on the values of the peoples around them, and they had lost all respect for their own, for themselves, for their women. They just did what they wanted with their women. Talk about women's rights. This issue, it goes back right to biblical times even. It is not what God what God told them to do. God did not tell them to. In fact, there is a book in the Bible called Song of Solomon, where God talks about the love between a man and a woman and representing his love for us, the bride of Christ. So he uses them to bring justice to that woman who had died. So when I read this, I was extremely disturbed. But when I look around the world today, there are so many examples of it. And it's basically a way of life in some of the Middle Eastern countries. That is how they treat their women. And now think of all the people that have invaded even Spain, the UK, America, and think of the many children that have been raped and the women that have been mistreated because they are not wearing a burqa. You know what people I'm talking about. I don't have to say the word, but the word burqa basically said it for me. When someone moves into someone's house, when you take someone in off the street, or maybe that's going through a hard time, and you shelter them, they come under your own, as the owner of the house, you have rules that you set out, and they have to abide by them because they're under your roof. You have been good enough to take them in. That is how it works, with respect, integrity, love, compassion. But there have always been people in the world who, if you give them a hand, they take an arm. Certainly, I've experienced it in friendships that I've had, where some people, just due to circumstances, they become extremely manipulative. And if you give them a hand and you have a little bit of compassion and kindness, they won't just take the hand, they'll take the arm, and they'll require you to basically give all your time and your life to them because they feel so insecure. Problem is that these people that do this in our world are not insecure. They are actually, they know what they're doing. And they do it, and they've started doing it years ago undercover, but now they are trying their best to take over. But as I said, there are people who are rising up against them. And if you want to know who is speaking the truth, who is right with the Lord, who is peaceful, talk about their speech. Talk about, are they exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit, which is what I say in this channel all the time, is, are they exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit? There are even some Christian people, or people who call themselves Christian, who lash out in hate and violent speech, right? They are not exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit. And that is a way to speak, to tell what these people are like, which people are right with the Lord. Because even if you talk about things that are going wrong, things that are really evil and violent, when you talk about it, you have this peace, and that peace is the knowledge that your future is set. I was singing a song earlier on. I will dance on the streets that are golden. Oh, sorry, it's we. We will dance on the streets that are golden, the glorious bride and the great Son of Man. From every tribe and tongue and nation will join in the song of the Lamb. That is an old song. That is like from my childhood. Early days. We don't sing that song anymore. I don't know why. It's a really good song. But we know as Christians that we will dance on the streets that are golden because our wonderful bridegroom will come and get us if we don't die before that. And as I said the other day, I really feel that when the body dies, in our last days on this earth, the body dies, and the more the body dies, the more the spirit lives, the more the spirit is alive. It's not just death and that's it, but the spirit comes to life. And if you want to know, how do I know that? And, I know that because I've experienced it, and it's biblical. The Bible says that if you die to self, you will find eternal life. And so we live as living sacrifices, dying to self every day, that we might find the life of God. And you can experience it on earth. You can experience the life of Christ. You can experience his peace, his presence, his love, his joy. Yes, he can. He makes it available to us. Do we experience it in its fullness? No, of course not. But one day we will experience it in its fullness. If we experienced it in its fullness today, we would not be able to take it in our puny little bodies. We will not be able to take it. But one day we will live in that with no pain, with love, joy, peace, patience, all the fruits of the Spirit. It will be amazing. It will be wonderful. I've been able to taste a little bit of it. And I thank God humbly, really, for showing that to me, because I've literally felt that in my body. So thank you for listening. I hope you got some good stuff from here. It was a more serious one today, but also something that we should talk about. What does a world without Christ look like? Well, to do that, to apply that as today, you just need to look at what is happening, at the anger of the enemy for Christians and the way he is taking over and trying to influence laws that regulate how we worship God, how we express our faith. I'm sorry, you do not have any control over my faith, over what I think in my mind, and over how I love God and worship him and show that. Because that is a very personal thing to me, and I will never, ever let go of that, because it is special. And I wish that for you too. I wish for you to find that beautiful living relationship with Jesus Christ, where he is always with you. Okay, thank you so much. Goodbye.